It's July 2024 and I've headed out of Chesterfield on the Peak Sightseer to explore more of the Peak District, from caves and gemstones to puddings and tarts. I've been staying in Chesterfield, second largest settlement in Derbyshire and located right on the edge of the Peak District, home to stunning scenery, picturesque towns, stately homes and visited by around 13.25 million people every year. To help reduce the numbers of cars coming into the park, visitors are encouraged to make use of the extensive public transport links that come into the area, with one of those being the open-top Peak Sightseer. In 2024, the Peak Sightseer operated two routes between March and October, centring on Chatsworth House, the seat of the Dukes of Devonshire, with the two routes, red and blue, heading out from the house at regular frequencies. But, as the landed gentry don't usually like having bus depots on their land, the first buses of the morning have to come from depots in Sheffield and Chesterfield, which means the first couple of buses of the morning onto both routes start in service in Chesterfield, as well as the last buses of the day providing the link back into the town. And the day ticket that covers the regular route allows you to travel on these buses for the same price. After starting at the railway station in Chesterfield, the buses do a quick lap of the town centre. Including a drive past the famous St Mary's and All Saints Church with its crooked spire. Before heading out of town and into the stunning countryside of the Peak District for the 30-minute drive out to Chatsworth House. Chatsworth House is one of the premier stately homes of the United Kingdom, and unlike many of their peers, the Cavendish family, the Dukes of Devonshire, have the money to keep the house and lands in the family through generations of death duties and inheritance taxes, without having to pass ownership over to either the National Trust or English Heritage. From Chatsworth, the Blue Peak Sightseer runs on an hourly linear route, taking about 75 minutes to make its journey right up to the foot of Mam Tor near Castleton before retracing its steps all the way back to Chatsworth. Both routes spend a little time navigating the vast Chatsworth estate before they exit the neatly manicured grounds of the Deer Park and estate villages and head out into the Peak District proper. Most of the blue route follows the Hope Valley, named for the town in the middle of the valley, which starts below Mam Tor and actually encompasses multiple rivers, as Peak Shoal water flows into the River Noe, which then flows into the River Derwent. The valley is generally considered to end at Grindleford, which is where the bus first meets the valley briefly, before swinging away from the river valley and climbing up into the hills towards Padley Gorge and the Longshore Estate. The bus turns onto the main A6187 road, the main road that runs through the Hope Valley today, and briefly enters the outermost and probably most rural part of the Yorkshire city of Sheffield. Prior to 2000, this was the A625 road, but from the 1970s onwards, the route past Mam Tor was subject to regular landslides and subsidence and was abandoned in 1979, with the route diverted through the Winnats Pass. The pass itself, as we'll see shortly, is not suitable for large amounts of traffic, so in 2000 the route of the A625 was diverted away close to here, taking through traffic out of the Hope Valley altogether. At the Toad's Mouth rock formation, the road crosses the Burbage Brook and completes a very extended 180-degree turn as it starts to head back past the moorland by the Longshore Estate, just slightly further over, re-entering Derbyshire at the same time. Shortly afterwards, we pass Owler Tor and perhaps one of the most aptly named bus stops in Britain, Surprise View. Another 90-degree turn and the road turns to run parallel to the Derwent far below it as the route starts a dramatic descent down into the village of Hathersage. With each turn down the road, the landscape opens up for views up the valley, with the River Derwent just visible on the valley floor, flanked by the railway line. The aptly named Hope Valley line links Sheffield to Manchester and is one of the most picturesque intercity railway lines in Britain. The bus skirts the edge of the village of Bamford, where the Derwent turns north, and we follow the River Noe. And then on to Hope, where the River Noe also turns north, and we continue by following the Peak Shoal water until the bus eventually reaches the village of Castleton, the capital of the Hope Valley, and named for the now ruined 11th century castle of William Peveril, the family who at one time also owned the lands and castle in Bolsover. Beyond Castleton, the road heads into an even more dramatic lateral landscape as the bus heads towards Winnats Pass, a dramatic cleft surrounded by high limestone ridges that takes the road up and over the high peaks, and then down to the towns and cities of Lancashire and Greater Manchester on the other side of the mountains. The landscape feels very much closer as the limestone ridges close in on the road. The bus's penultimate stop is at the Speedwell Cavern, a limestone karst cave and former lead mine which can be visited on the only underground boat trip in the country, as the galleries have long since been flooded after mining was abandoned in 1790, less than 20 years after it had started. From here, the bus enters the pass and takes the winding road that rises a gradient of up to 28%. Special exemption is made for Peak Sightseer as the road is closed to all large vehicles over 7.5 tonnes due to the gradient and narrowness of the road. The pass cuts steeply down through the lower Carboniferous limestone rocks that form this part of the peaks. The rocks were formed around 340 million years ago as a reef fringing a shallow lagoon with deeper water beyond. Over millions of years the land was uplifted, but water, most likely from snow or glacial melts, would have flowed along the lines of weakness in the rock, carving out the gorge that exists today. The journey up through the Winnats Pass leads you to the high peaks by the foot of Mam Tor. From up here there are views back down into the valley and Castleton far below. This is also the jumping off point for visiting the Blue John Cavern. Along with Speedwell, Trek Cliff and Peak Caverns, this is one of the 4 show caves of Castleton. The cavern takes its name from the semi-precious mineral Blue John, also known as Derbyshire Spar, for which the hill this cavern buries under is the sole global source due to the unique geological requirements for it to form. The seam is believed to be around 250 million years old, the Romans being the first to use the mineral for its beauty around 2,000 years ago. Outside the main tourist season, small amounts of mining still take place in the cavern to provide the raw material for the locally made jewellery. Blue John is a very rare form of fluorite, also called fluorospar. Whilst fluorite is white or colourless, Blue John has bands of purple, blue or yellow running through it. Whilst it's not definitive, it's believed the name derives from the French bleu jaune, meaning blue-yellow, referencing the colour in the rock. Over time, Blue Jaune corrupted to Blue John. Tours of the cavern take about an hour, with a guide taking you down the 245 steps to the bottom of the cavern, stopping along the way at the numerous halls that have been carved out of the rock on the way down, some by miners, most by millions of years of water erosion. Of course, with 245 steps to reach the bottom, it also means at the end of the tour it's 245 steps to get back up to the top. In certain locations, it's possible to actually see the seam of Blue John within the rock. Back up at the surface, and the blue Peak Sightseer now retraces its route all the way back to Chatsworth. At Chatsworth, I changed onto a red route and continued my journey out to the town of Bakewell. The red route operates on a circular loop every 30 minutes, taking about 50 minutes to do its full circuit out of the estate and through the estate village of Pilsey before taking a clockwise route through Hassop, Bakewell and Ashford in the Water before returning to Pilsey and then Chatsworth. Bakewell is a market town that sits on the A6, the main road that passes through the heart of the Peak District, linking the southeast of England with Cumbria via the Midlands and Lancashire. It's also on the River Wye and is about 15 miles southwest of Sheffield. With a population of around 4,000 people, the town is the largest settlement and the only town within the boundaries of the Peak District National Park. Bakewell was originally founded in Anglo-Saxon times when it sat in the Kingdom of Mercia. The first market was established in 1254, which allowed Bakewell to develop as a trading centre. The Grade 1 listed 5-arch bridge over the River Wye dates from this period, but is one of only a few remnants of the old town, as the Chalybeate Spring was discovered in 1697, and during the early years of the following century there was an attempt to develop Bakewell into a spa town in the manner of nearby Buxton. Further redevelopment of the town took place in the 19th century, with rebuilding of much of the town following the construction of Lumford Mill by Richard Arkwright in 1777. The town, though, perhaps is most famous for its cuisine, being home to the Bakewell pudding, a jam pastry with a filling enriched with egg and ground almond. That's not to be confused with a Bakewell tart, which is a pastry with an almond topping and sponge and jam filling. The origins aren't clear, but the popular story is that the tart was created by accident in the 1820s when the landlady of a White Horse Inn left instructions for a cook to make a jam tart with an egg and almond paste pastry base. The cook, however, spread the eggs and paste on top of the jam instead of mixing them into the pastry. When cooked, the jam rose through the paste. Neither of those would be confused with a cherry Bakewell, which is a concoction of Mr. Kipling, where fondant and half a glacé cherry are whacked on top of that for that extra hit of diabetes. Chesterfield is located on the Midland Main Line, which links London St Pancras with Leicester, Derby, Chesterfield and Sheffield. East Midland Railways run trains every 30 minutes on the route, taking around 15 minutes to Sheffield and Derby, Leicester in just under the hour and London in 2 hours. There are additional cross-country services at approximately 2-hourly intervals on the route from Edinburgh, Newcastle, York and Leeds to Birmingham, Bristol, Exeter and Plymouth. Northern run hourly services to Nottingham and Leeds. And connecting via Derby or Sheffield, you can reach East Midlands, Leeds, Bradford, Manchester and Birmingham airports, all within a couple of hours.